Like and subscribe right now, or this spider is gonna crawl on your face while you're sleeping.
10 most amazing recent geological finds. If you have watched The Big Bang Theory and seen the guys make fun of Bert the geologist, you may think that geology is the science of boring people staring at boring rocks. Nothing could be further from the truth. Geology is the history of our Earth written in rock and chemical. It is the language that still humbles experts in its immensity and truth. In a heartbeat, new discoveries can dismiss long-supported beliefs and, in their place, offer the strange, the unknown, and the mind-bending changes that Earth has experienced. The age of the Earth is approximately 4.54 billion years old. The natural structures observed on our planet allow geologists, archaeologists, and historians to understand environmental events and their impacts on humans. Here are some of the most recent and most incredible geological discoveries. Let's go. Number 10. Norman Conquest Coin Hoard. On October 14, 1066, William the Conqueror defeated the last Anglo-Saxon king of England, Harold Godwinson, at the Battle of Hastings, ushering in Norman rule. According to British Museum researchers, the discovery in southwest England's Chew Valley of a cache of more than 2,500 silver pennies from the reigns of both kings underscores the political uncertainty of the years surrounding the Norman conquest. Most of the 1,236 coins in the hoard that feature Harold's face were minted in southeast England, which indicates steadfast allegiance to him in the region despite the coming threat of William's invasion. By contrast, all 1,310 coins featuring William were issued after his Christmas Day coronation, suggesting that by that point, his claim to the throne was generally recognized. A coin minter seems to have taken advantage of the tumultuous period following Harold's death. 2 mule coins struck with Harold's visage on one side and William's on the other represent this sneaky minter's attempt to avoid the expense of purchasing fresh dies to produce new coinage, as was required every few years. Altogether, the hoard's coins, some cut into quarters or halves to make smaller denominations, would have been more than sufficient to purchase at least 500 sheep. Impressive. That is like buying 50 luxury cars in today's money.
Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that will take just 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell and you get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it. It really works.
Number 9. Tomb of the Silver Dragons. In north-central Mongolia, archaeologists have unearthed 2 lavish tombs built for nobles of the Xiongnu Empire, a nomadic people who dominated the eastern Eurasian steppes from the 3rd century BC to the 1st century AD. The Xiongnu frequently waged war against China's Han Dynasty. To defend against these incursions, the Han built fortifications that eventually became part of the Great Wall. Both of the Xiongnu tombs were excavated by a team from the Ulaanbaatar University at the Henan Province Institute of Cultural Heritage and Archaeology, contained sumptuous grave goods. In the larger tomb, researchers found wooden boxes that held silver rings, jade belt hooks, and a pair of gilded silver dragons that may once have served as handles on a vessel. The smaller tomb contained the remains of a man buried with a horse-drawn carriage, 15 horse heads, and 19 silver equestrian ornaments, each depicting a unicorn deity. The team also recovered part of a jade-decorated sword from this grave, the first to be found in a Zhonghua tomb. Number 8. Denisovans at altitude. Some 40 years ago, a Buddhist monk uncovered a mandible in Bejiakar's cave, more than 10,000 feet above sea level on the Tibetan Plateau. The specimen has now been dated to 160,000 years ago. An analysis of proteins from its teeth indicates that it belonged to a member of the hominid species known as Denisovans. These elusive ancient humans were previously known only through fragmentary remains of several individuals, all of which were found in southern Siberia's Denisova Cave, which is just 2,300 feet above sea level and almost 1,750 miles northwest of Benishiakarsk Cave. This mandible reveals that Denisovans were geographically distributed much more widely and at higher altitude than we previously thought, end quote. Earlier studies of Denisovan genetic material had detected a mutation that fosters survival in low oxygen environments found in extremely high altitude locations, such as the Tibetan Plateau. This same mutation has been identified in present-day Tibetans, and the discovery that Denisovans once inhabited the region may explain how they obtained this life-preserving adaptation. Number 7. Peruvian Mass Sacrifice. more than 230 children, and nearly 400 llamas, along with evidence that suggests they were part of 3 distinct mass sacrificial events, have been discovered at the coastal site of Papa La Cruz. The first of these events dates to around AD 1250 and is thus far the earliest mass child and animal sacrifice in the region. Similar mass sacrifices have been found from later dates in the same area and have been interpreted as offering to the gods of the local Chimu people in response to the destruction wrought by El Niño events. But archaeologist Gabriel Prieto of the University of Florida believes the earliest Papa La Cruz sacrifice may have had a political purpose. Quote, "It's intriguing that this first sacrificial event occurred at exactly the same time the Chimu were conquering peoples such as the Lambayeque, who lived in the valleys to the north," says Prieto. "It's fascinating to imagine that the victims may have been Lambayeque citizens brought here to celebrate those victories," end quote. Another possible interpretation is that the sacrifice was meant to honor Tincanimo, the legendary founder of the Chimu, who is said to have come from the seas and walked south to find the Chimu capital of Chan Chan around AD 1000. Papa La Cruz overlooks the exact spot where he is thought to have landed. Number 6. New Golden House Room. A small crack in the vaulted ceiling led archaeologists to a new room of the Domus Aurea, or Golden House, the immense pleasure palace built by Emperor Nero after a fire devastated Rome in AD 64. After Nero's death, the Domus Aurea was seen as the emperor's folly, and the structure's interior was completely filled in. A public park for all the Romans to enjoy was built on top. It was not until the 15th century that, quite by accident, the vast property was rediscovered. Since then, the Domus Aurea has been the site of exploration, excavation, and nearly constant restoration. During one such restoration project, archaeologists found the new room, which is covered in frescoes. Quote, "It was very emotional for us to find a previously unknown room, or maybe one that we had lost track of," says archaeologist Alessandro D'Alessio of the Italian Ministry of Cultural Heritage. The frescoes depict a centaur and other mythological figures, a whistle-like instrument, a decorative plant, and a column topped with a golden bowl and sphinx that has given the space its name, the Room of the Sphinxes. Number 5. Medieval Female Scribe. Ultramarine, a brilliant blue pigment, was so dearly coveted in the European Middle Ages that it at times fetched a higher price than gold. The coloring was prepared from the mineral lapis lazuli, which was mined in a single remote location in Afghanistan. A multidisciplinary team was, therefore, surprised to detect an abundance of ultramarine particles embedded in the dental plaque of a woman buried in the 11th or early 12th century at a German monastery. We wondered how on earth a woman at this early date, in a kind of backward location, came into contact with this incredibly expensive mineral, says Christina Warner, a molecular archaeologist at Harvard University and the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History. The most likely explanation, the researchers concluded, was the woman was a scribe who used the pigment to illustrate sacred manuscripts. Their method of analysis may point the way to identifying more early medieval female scribes, who have gone unrecognized because they rarely, if ever, sign their work. "We do have a few surviving manuscripts written by women around the same time period," says Warner. "But how many more artists are waiting to be found if we just look at their teeth?" End quote. Number 4. The origin of apples. Researchers are now one step closer to understanding how apples made the journey from wild populations to grocery stores and farmers markets around the world, and how that process differed from domestication of grasses such as wheat and rice. The first people to make use of these grasses encountered fields of densely packed wild cereals. The seeds of these self-pollinating annuals dropped to the ground when ripe, allowing a fresh crop to grow each year. Over the course of a millennia, beginning around 12,000 years ago, humans first harvested, then domesticated these crops. Apple trees, on the other hand, reproduced poorly when fallen apples were left to rot, or when second-generation trees grow too close to their parents. They rely on animals, including humans, to disperse their seeds and carry out pollination. The fossil record suggests that apples developed across Europe and Asia as early as 11.6 million years ago. Apple specimens from a Neolithic site in Switzerland date back to 3160 BC. Archaeologists have discovered an apple seed from the end of the first millennium BC at a village site in the Tian Shan Mountains in Kazakhstan. This is thought to be where the modern apple originated. As part of a quest to determine how apples were domesticated, archaeobotanist Robert Spengler of the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History has combined the fossil and archaeological evidence with genetic studies comparing modern apples to their ancient ancestors. He has concluded that the first human populations to ever encounter wild apples took on a role once performed by now extinct megafauna, dispensing seeds and pollen and inadvertently expanding the fruit's range. Number 3. Neolithic henge feasts. Neolithic Britons not only traveled hundreds of miles to attend celebrations at sacred sites, they also brought their own pigs with them to be consumed in the festivals. The food that an animal or person eats when young leaves a chemical signature in their teeth and bones that scientists can analyze and determine where they were or were not raised. An investigation led by Richard Madgwick of Cardiff University recently analyzed pig bones discarded more than 4,000 years ago at 4 hedge sites in southwest England, including Durrington Walls. Madgwick concluded that many of the pigs butchered at the hedges were not bred nearby, but were instead brought from as far north as modern Scotland and northwest England. This finding helped in establishing that people across different locations were well informed of sacred sites and traveled long distances to attend festivals. Number 2. Maya Subterranean World. Archaeologists exploring a cave system near the center of the Mayan city of Chichen Itza unexpectedly came upon several chambers filled with ritual objects. This discovery supports the theory that when the great city was founded, sometime before the 7th century AD, it was laid out with relationship to the sacred underground realm in mind. Dubbed Balamku, or Cave of the Jaguar God, the cave system was first recorded by archaeologists in 1966 and then sealed off from the outside world. The current team, led by archaeologist Guillermo de Anda of Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History and James Brady of California State University, Los Angeles, reopened the long-overlooked cave during a survey of underground rivers. After crawling through its cramped passages, they identified at least 7 ritual chambers holding some 170 ceramic artifacts in all, including incense burners decorated with depictions of the rain god Tlaloc. Balamku helped show that the subterranean world was important to the ancient Mayans in a way archaeologists still don't fully appreciate, says Brady. The team also found evidence that the cave was desecrated in antiquity, likely by the same people who attacked Chichen Itza around AD 1200, participating in its collapse. Further study of the cave may provide a more precise date for the city's fall. Number 1. Old Kingdom Tomb. During investigation of the funerary complex of the 5th dynasty pharaoh Djedker Sesi, a team from the Czech Institute of Egyptology discovered the painted tomb of a high-ranking Old Kingdom Egyptian dignitary. After descending a narrow subterranean tunnel that opened up into a series of rooms, members of the team, led by archaeologist Mohammed Megahead, found hieroglyphs on the walls announcing that a man named Kiwi was entombed within the chamber. The writing also enumerates Kiwi's many titles, including Secretary of the King, Champion of the Royal House, and Overseer of the Tenants of the Great House. Alongside the hieroglyphs are scenes painted in colors that remain vibrant even after 4,300 years later. One of the main panels depicts Kiwi himself seated before a table piled high with food, drinks, and other offerings meant to sustain him in the afterlife. Scenes of the tomb omer are highly unusual in the Old Kingdom tombs. The high-quality paintings, the tomb's proximity to Djedker's own pyramid, which mimics that of a tomb belonging to a 5th dynasty pharaoh, all suggest that Kiwi played a prominent role in the royal court.